The Nigerian Labour Congress has threatened a showdown, plans a nationwide strike, but there is a new twist to it because after the meeting with the federal government team, we'll be hearing details of the outcome of that meeting at the presidential villa. And the Senate today has condemned the sit-at-home situation in the southeast region of the country, and they are proposing an extradition of Simon Ekpa from Finland. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimale in Abuja. We have a very long list of menu conversations that are must to have on a day as these. So many things that are bordering on the state of the nation, and some of the breaking news that are coming through right now, especially as it relates to the meeting between the Nigerian Labour and the federal government on the demands of labor that there should be a reversal of the policy of government and the removal of petrol subsidy. We'll be getting you details of the outcome of that meeting on the program tonight. So stick around with me, everyone. We'll be letting you know what Labour has decided. They issued a communique to go on a nationwide strike. Looks to me like a showdown. Where will this end? How will this pan out? These are some of the issues that get our attention tonight on the program. Plus, we'll be looking at what the Senate has decided on. They've condemned the sit-at-home situation in the southeast region of the country. And we've seen moves by the Enugu state government, for example, to seal the shops and outlets of those who obey the sit-at-home order. And the Senate is also proposing that Simon Ekpa should be extradited to Nigeria. We'll be getting all the insight tonight on the program, so stick around. But first, let's have you with your political roundup stories.
The federal government says federal universities in Nigeria remain tuition-free. A statement by the Special Advisor to the President on Special Duties, Communication and Strategy, Mr. Dele Alake, says President Bola Tinubu is committed to his promise of ensuring that every Nigerian, regardless of the economic situation of their parents, has access to quality tertiary education. It was widely reported earlier this week that the federal government had increased tuition fees in federal universities in the country. However, Mr. Alake reiterated that these reports are inaccurate. As part of efforts to deepen the nation's democracy, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, says the commission will continue to welcome suggestions that will improve the future conduct of elections and the electoral process in Nigeria. Addressing media practitioners in Abuja at a meeting to review the 2023 general elections, the chairman of the commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, who admits that there were challenges, appealed to citizens to be part of the discussion that will lead to the overall improvement of the nation's electoral process.
Beyond reporting our activities, we are also convinced that as citizens, you should be part of the discussion for the overall improvement of our electoral process based on your field observation.
And from Delta State, Governor Sheriff Oborevori has announced the approval of payment of 5 billion naira promotion arrears to civil servants in the state to be paid in 3 tranches from August to October of 2023. The governor disclosed this while addressing workers during an unscheduled visit to the state secretariat in Asaba, the state capital. According to the governor, the approval is sequel to demand by the workers prior to the governorship election, where he promised to pay if elected as governor.
Please continue to do more. Continue to work for the interest of this state. Please don't play with your work. I can come here anytime without informing the head of service.
The Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde has sworn in a secretary to the state government, the head of service, commissioners, and permanent secretaries today at the ESCO chambers of the governor's office in Agodi, Ibadan. Governor Makinde maintained that contrary to the notion that administrations are often lax and non-committal during second terms, his government is looking to leave a strong legacy in the state, promising that he will not let the people of the state down.
As a government, we will continue to search for such people from all the nooks and crannies of Oyo State to serve the state.
And from the southeast state of Imo, ahead of the November 11 governorship election, the Association of Local Governments of Nigeria and Imo State has passed a vote of confidence on the Imo State Governor, Senator Hope Uzodimma. The decision was predicated by their assessment of his quality performance and delivery of good governance across the 27 local government areas of the state. At a news conference in Owerri, the state capital, the group notes that the governor's second term in office will enable him consolidate on his achievements in office and further improve on education, health and security.
We adopt and endorse His Excellency distinguished Senator Hope Uzodimma as our sole and only governorship candidate in the forthcoming November 2023 governorship election in Imo State.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Let's begin with the very top story that we are following for you right here on China's television, and it relates to the petrol subsidy and the removal of subsidy announced by President Bola Tinubu on the 29th of May. The Nigerian Labour Congress has since come out and issued a 7-day ultimatum to the President Bola Tinubu and his administration to reverse what they describe as the all anti-poor people policies, including the hike in the price of petrol, which followed the removal of subsidy. In that communique, which came after the Central Working Committee meeting, which held yesterday, the Labour, threatened that they will embark on a total and indefinite strike action from today, from next week, August the 2nd, should the federal government fail to do the needful. The communique was co-signed by the NLC president and the union's general secretary, Emmanuel Ugbuaja. The NLC says that the federal government has shown enormous disdain and contempt for the Nigerian people, have declared a war of attrition on Nigerian workers and masses. The Nigerian Labour and the federal government team that met today at the presidential villa, a meeting which we understand just ended a few minutes ago. We will be having the Nigerian Labour Congress president joining us in a moment on the program. Let's get some perspective to this, but also we'll be giving you insight into what happened also in the Senate in relation to the Southeast situation, the security situation. The Senate has condemned what is happening there. In fact, some of the senators are asking that the federal government and whoever becomes the Minister of Foreign Affairs should work on extraditing Mr. Simon Ekpa, the man who lives in Finland. But again, we will also be touching on the situation that happened in court yesterday, where we saw a situation where the DSS and a correctional facility official in a scuffle. That situation, the DSS have come out to say that the suspended governor of CBN, Godwin Emefiele, who was arraigned at the Federal High Court in Ikoyi yesterday, and that incident took place between a staff and those of the Nigerian Correctional Service, and saying that that incident was unfortunate and does not in any way reflect the professional disposition of the DSS. And the service says that it did not and would never encourage the incident on the reference. These are incidents that some lawyers had referenced that, in fact, that there is a blatant disobedience to court order and a disdain to the judiciary in Nigeria. Let's get some insight quickly now. I'm being joined by Mr. Kaode Adeluola, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria. He joins us virtually from Lagos. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Adeluola. It's good to see you. Let's begin with a very first story, which is on the Nigerian Labour Congress and the threat that they will begin a nationwide strike, which they call final and total. It will begin on the 2nd of August. They had a meeting with the federal government. But don't forget, Mr. Adeluola, that the Nigerian government had gone to the industrial court to stop the NLC from engaging in any kind of action. Now, where does this leave the Labour Congress in this kind of situation? They've described the federal government's action as an anti-people policies.
Thank you very much, Sean, for having me again this evening. But you see, we are in a situation where everybody wants to participate in what's going on, in ensuring that they, in a manner of speaking, protect their own interests. The NLC, if you recall, had said at the beginning when the first subsidy was removed that they were going to go on strike. The TUC also came. But they sat with the representative of government led by Mr. Dele Alake at the time, and they kind of found a compromise. I don't know what has led to this again, because we are all aware that the increase in fuel price, we are told, is as a result of the value of refined products being shipped to Nigeria. Now, if the NLC wants to go on strike, the question will be, in whose interest? Would it be in the interest of workers only, or in the interest of the generality of the Nigerian populace? Now, the government has gone to court. Will the NLC abide by a court ruling or order, or will they simply go ahead and go on strike? The question will then be, will two wrongs make a right? I do not think so. We need to have an attitude of ensuring that we follow law and order. Now, when we use the words law and order, the tendency is for us to see them as interchangeable. They're not interchangeable. The law is as provided in statutes or constitutions, and order means that we should follow procedure. We should do things that would ensure that there isn't acrimony in the society. We do not unnecessarily charge up the society and make things very difficult for ourselves. So I would think that NLC must see themselves as a formidable force that has access to government. If, for example, they decide to go on strike and we have other unions joining them, we have people, the marine, aviation, then we might, of course, be grinding the country to a standstill. We all feel the pinch of a hike in a price of fuel. There's no doubt about that. Everybody feels it. But we must act in a way that we should be able to bring the best situation to all Nigerians, particularly those who are not so privileged. I will therefore feel that the NLC should not go on strike if there's a court order asking not to do so, and find other means. I'm sure we can find other means of resolving this without necessarily having acrimony on our hands.
I imagine that the order of court that the Nigerian government got probably would have expired by the time the NLC had fixed for its strike. And so I imagine also that some members of the NLC understand the workings of the Nigerian law, and they know that some of these orders will expire after maximum of 14 days. Some of it's 7 days. I guess it was an ex parte order that the federal government got against the NLC. But look, Mr. Adeluola, the resident doctors have also decided to go on nationwide strike. The question is, how do you call the government to order? Don't forget, government is almost next to God in the affairs of men. When government takes a decision, it's supersede, it has an effect, overriding effect on the activities of every citizen. So how then do you rein in government when government does look like they are out of order? I mean, one will imagine that maybe the negotiation is not really getting a headway. Or what do you think? Or what do you think is the way out?
You know, I look at it this way. Whilst I agree with you that government is a continuum, I do not think we should tar all governments with the same brush. We have this new government that has come in only in the last 59 or 60 days. I think we should give this government a chance until it proves itself as dictatorial and unyielding to the yearnings of people. I think, like you said, if government begins to act in a way that suggests that it's discriminating against one wing of populace against the other, that is the poor versus the rich, or we find a situation where government just simply does not listen to the cries of the people, then there'll be every need for people to rise up. But I think for a government that has just come in, like I was discussing with some classmates of mine, I think I would like to give this government 100 days before I determine what direction they're going or not going. But some things really and truly, I quite agree, cannot continue to wait ad infinitum, like the palliative, although some people say we shouldn't use the word palliative, suggests that we're about to die, that's why we're using palliative. But the truth is, we should allow government to do what it has to do and seek audience with them. I'd like to hear NLC saying, we have tried to meet with Mr. President or his representative. This is the outcome of a meeting. They have been unyielding. And gentlemen of the press, members of the public, the option open to us is this strike. Until then, I think we should all be very, very careful not to unnecessarily upset the status quo. That's what I think, sure.
Yeah, I mean, the labor unions have proven to be an effective force to reining in government, even in the face of military dictatorship. We've seen some very strong labor force in this country in the past. But let me take you to yet another issue, NLC. And this is about the incident which happened yesterday between officials of the, well, we've been told not to refer to them as the DSS, although they refer to themselves as the DSS, but the law, the constitution refers to them as the SSS. What happened between that institution and the correctional facility official when the court gave an order to say, look, allow this man to go into the custody of the correctional facility. He will be on bail. Pending the time he perfects his bail condition, let him be out of your custody, but in this custody. But the DSS have said, look, we will investigate what happened. We do not condone it. But in the face of how it happened, within the premises of where it happened, how would you describe or analyze that circumstance?
Shell, without mincing words, I'll tell you this. What happened yesterday on the premises of the Federal High Court was sacrilege. Once upon a time, when people walked on the precincts of the courts, just walking past the court, they removed their hats with quiet, just out of respect for the premises, not even the judge himself. So for us to find agents or governments causing such uproar on the premises of the courts, the Federal High Court, fighting, getting to fisticuffs and tearing each other's shirts up was very embarrassing to all of us as Nigerians. Was quite disgraceful and should be avoided in the future. We must learn to respect institutions. A court gave an order, let this man go on bail or let him remain in the custody of the correctional facility pending his completion of his bail conditions. And you find a situation where another agency of government says, no, he must come with us. The question is why? I think we have come to a point now where those who are members of our security agencies must have occasional seminars on how to conduct themselves everywhere. Because what happened in courts yesterday clearly was shown all over the world, and you can imagine what opinion people must have of us. On the court premises, find people who are supposed to maintain law and order, fighting, causing this kind of commotion, whilst other courtrooms were sitting and judges listening to cases, was wrong in the extreme. Well, the SSS has said they're going to investigate it. The least they can do is to give us the outcome of the investigation and tell us that those who conducted themselves that way have been punished. But we must ensure that this sort of thing does not happen again. I'm not saying so because I'm a legal practitioner. I'm saying so as a citizen of Nigeria. Let us begin to respect our institutions, particularly our courts.
I mean, there are a lot of reactions and comments that have trailed yesterday's incident. Those who have said, look, don't let us take sides. Let's look at what happened. And in fact, even Mr. Emefiele is out of the conversation for a lot of people who may think, oh, Mr. Emefiele, I mean, his case is before the court right now, so nobody is talking about Mr. Emefiele. We're talking about the scenario within the court premises. He's called a temple of justice for some reason. It's a sacred ground. It's a ground of some level of civil holiness where you cannot just mess around like you described it, where people will bow and tremble because that is where justice is usually served. But there are those who have said we should naturally have heard something from the executive that is in charge of these security agencies that control these two entities. Do you imagine, for example, that maybe the president could have intervened and spoken something, especially as it affects the judiciary that is the bastion of our society, that is somewhat of a balancing equation for our democracy? Do you think?
I agree with you, but you see, that also brings us to the point where right now, a lot of us would love to see ministers appointed and sworn in. If we had that, then we'll be turning in the direction of either the Attorney General, who must protect the tough of the judiciary, or the Minister of Internal Affairs, who is in charge of the correctional facilities, and ask him, what have you got to say? But right now, everything seems to be, in a state of flux. We need to have these ministers, not only because of what they're going to have to do by way of their responsibilities in terms of running their various ministries, but they will be the people to speak on behalf of their ministries and ensure that when a situation like this happens, we know who to speak to. I mean, we cannot continue to ask ourselves, who should we report these people to? For example, SSS says they're going to do something about it. If they don't do anything about it, who are we going to question? So we need to have things moving. And I'm sure the president is up to the task. Like I said to other people, I have no doubt in mind that he's able to appoint his ministers. Whatever is delaying him, I believe must be for good reason.
Let me take you to yet another matter, and this time around is the security situation in the Southeast region. What is going on there? Senate has described it as uncalled for, and perhaps one man sitting in Finland sending social media messages to the people of a region, 5 states, telling them, sit at home. And some governors had described it and said, look, Enugu government, for example, had said, if you do not go to work, we will seal your outlet. And that also has generated some kind of reaction. The Senate is also proposing a possible extradition of Simon Ekpa. Give us your insight on this one. How possible is it to get this man into Nigeria based on some of his action or inactions?
So, quite frankly, I do not think we should bother ourselves too much about Simon Ekpa. And I say this because a man sits in Finland and gives instructions to a group of people and they obey him. Now, whose fault is that, really and true? And I say so with great respect to my fellow citizens who are from those states where Simon Ekpa has simply instructed them not to go about their normal businesses. So if they are obeying because they believe in the cause Simon Ekpa is fighting, honestly, that leaves you and I very little to complain about. If others are simply obeying because they are afraid for their lives and the property, then government must protect them. I am aware that in Enugu State, for example, some people marched around the streets saying that the sit at home is enough and they cannot continue to sit at home. But you see, we are Nigerians. We must look at the yearnings of various people. What are their complaints? how can we assist them in bringing some peace to the region? If there are things that they're complaining about which are genuine, we must see to those things. But by the same token, I do not think anybody, any individual should hold a region or the government of a region or the federal government to ransom. It is wrong. And as far as I'm concerned, people who live and work in the Southeast region should be given an opportunity to work, to go around their businesses without let or hindrance. I don't think Simon Ekpa should be such a problem once to extradite him. Because you see, extradition also in international law is asking more, although it's a matter of law, but it's a way of asking for some favor. You don't want to use up your favor because Simon Ekpa says to some people, don't go to work, and they do not go to work. I really, honestly, I'm at a loss. But quite frankly, I think what we ought to be doing here is seeing how we can ensure that there's peace in that region. People can go about their businesses, and if there are genuine complaints about things going on in that region, I think we all should sit down.
Because, Mr. Adeluola, it does look like leaders, governors in that region are now up in begging for help to rescue their different states, because the sit at home is looking like it's out of their hands. For example, there were confrontations today in Enugu State, 2 persons reportedly dead, and because of reactions towards the sealing off of some people's outlets and shops based on the government's directive that if you obey the sit-at-home order, we will shut your shop. It's a very delicate thing to handle when you have a remotely controlled non-state actor activity in a region that has a legitimate government in place. How do you resolve this kind of scenario, this kind of situation?
So, I do not know what law permits the government to seal my shop if I refuse to go to my shop. I do not know under what law they are operating. But the truth is, if I'm at peace and I have no reason to be afraid, I will go to my shop and open it. So the conditions must be right for people to want to go to their shops. We know that in the past some people did, and they faced the consequences. So you see, the governors themselves, as the chief security officers of the states, must present before the police and the security agencies their readiness to ensure that there is peace in the state. But it looks as if, like someone has said in the past, that a lot of people are hiding. They do not want the sit-at-home strike, but they're not confident enough to say so in public, because, of course, some of them will face consequences back home in the Southeast region. So sealing homes or sealing shops or places of work cannot be the solution. I don't think so. I think, if anything, you're making it worse for them. Now they want to go to work on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and they can't open their shops. The governors were there over the last so many months when this sit-at-home strike was on, before it became something almost mandatory, and they didn't do anything at the time. I think anyone who's a politician, anyone who has a clout in the Southeast, should, in the interest of all that will be affected by their action or inaction, to do something concerning this and bring peace back to that region.
Right.
We need Southeast to be at peace. We need them to be at peace.
Mr. Kayode Adeluola, thank you so much. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, I sincerely appreciate your time and the insights you have given to all of these issues, a long list of them. I'm being joined now by the President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Mr. Joe Ajaero, who has just emerged out of the federal government and the NLC, the Labour Union team meeting and the negotiation over the petrol subsidy removal. Thank you so much, NLC President, Mr. Ajaero, for joining us. What is the outcome? Have you been able to resolve whether or not to go on that strike? Because we're looking at the implication of the communique and the action or decision of the NLC. Should you decide to go ahead, is it total and final nationwide strike still active?
Well, thank you very much. I think we need to get the position of the NLC very clear on our communique. Our communique stated clearly that by 2nd of August, we're back on a nationwide protest as a first measure towards other measures for the government to reverse certain anti-people policies. And that's clear. Nothing has changed that as we discuss now. That's where we stand.
You're asking, one of your demands is for the reversal of the policy, status quo ante bellum. Perhaps that is how legally to describe it. You're asking federal government to go back to when subsidy is being paid and when fuel sell for below 200 and something is, that's when it rose from. Is that the case?
No, not antebellum. If you understand, you will agree with me that we had an agreement with the government over the issue of 520 increase in PMS. And that agreement, the committee was yet to start work when the government announced another increase. So the committee set up based on 520 equally met today to start work on the issue of 120. The issue of the recent increase, 617 or 630, is not on the table. And it was on the basis of that we have issued our protest notice. And we'll go about that one, despite the fact that the committee on 520 is meeting.
So what today's meeting, were you able to bring this matter to the table? And what was the response of the federal government?
Which of the matters, the 630 or 617?
No, the latest matter now is that go back to 510. Were you able to bring that matter to the table?
The issue is 510 is at the point we set up a committee, and that is where we are still discussing. Now, the issue of 617 or 630 is being resisted, and it is on the basis of that, that we are going to start our protest on the 2nd. The issue of equally 520 is still not resolved, but at least a committee has been set up, subcommittees set up, the working groups set up. We are discussing on it. The issue of, we have not estimated as at today, because we agreed today to fast-track discussions on that. We are not discussing the latest increase, and it's based on the latest increase that we are taking action. I think this is clear.
But when we wonder that the federal government are taking the Nigerian Labour Congress and its affiliate organizations to the industrial court, is that order subsists, or it has been vacated, or it's expired by exfusion of time?
Well, I wouldn't know. The issues there are different. The issues there are issues around 520. The issues are being handled in the courts.
So
the issue of 620, 630 is not before any court, and our response to it is not a strike action; it's a protest action. I'm not sure there will be an injunction against protest by Nigerians.
For those who have lived long enough to experience labor strike in Nigeria, know how painful this could be to the economy, on how strangulating it could be to the general activities of the people of the country. Is Labour looking at this situation? It's already a bad situation in the country, the price of commodity. The resident doctors, some of your members, some of your colleagues are also going on strike. Have you looked at the impact this will have? Is it going to be a case of when two elephants fight, the grass suffer? The poor you claim to want to fight for are probably going to be on the receiving end. Is it possible you're looking at this dimension?
Well, it can get worse than it is today. The impacts we are talking of, is it the impacts on commodities or the impacts on the people? What we are resisting, what we are fighting against is the impact on the people. And the impact is so much. It's worse. I don't know what other consideration one can look at. Every government policy, every policy in a nation is aimed at benefiting the nation. So if we have a policy that has worsened our state, Naira is gone, economic activity is gone, food stuff gone, movement, you can't move, transportation gone. And, we are still analyzing that it will worsen the situation. Which situation will be worsened? It is equally, it is rather a move to rescue Nigerians, to see whether government can show some level of empathy for us to do things differently to enable Nigerians to survive.
And as a president, I know you did tell me that you're going to create some time because you are right in the middle of something. I'll allow you to go. But just before that, can you tell us, Mr. Jairo, this total and final nationwide strike that you are talking about, how extensive would this be?
Well, the position is not even just that of NLC. It's a protest by Nigerian people to say, in case you don't know how we are feeling, this is the way we are feeling. Market women, farmers have been beseeching our offices to say, look, let's communicate this to the government. This has gone beyond
so this is going to look like a shutting down of government and, of course, the nation's major activities. This is what it's going to look like, isn't it?
This is going to be a protest with all the issues raised, with all Nigerians coming out.
And you describe the policies of the Tinubu administration as anti-people, poor people policies. That's how you describe it.
Exactly. When you look at the fact that the little money being saved from the so-called subsidy is now being used to finance those at the National Assembly, those in the upper chambers, why people are suffering. The people who have started paying 600 and something from 85 naira are now suffering. They are paying more. Now they are paying more to finance those, upper there. So you can see that such a policy is very hard, it's very harsh on Nigerian people. And why the ones up there that says 70 billion naira is being provided for are earning better, are living better, while the excruciating effect of these policies are on the workers, are on the students that can't even leave from their houses to the next destination.
Mr. Joe Ajaro, thank you so much indeed for your time tonight. I appreciate it. And I'm hoping that all of this will be resolved fundamentally for the interest of the Nigerian people. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, Sharon.
We'll take a break. And when we come back, we'll be getting insight from someone who is left government, who has a lot of insight on how government works. We'll be analyzing some major issues, especially anticipation of Tinubu's cabinet is one day to the expiration of the constitutional window provided for the president to transmit the names of ministerial nominees to the National Assembly. When President Tinubu meets their deadline, he has only tomorrow left, or else might be locked in a constitutional issue. We'll be right back, everyone, after this break. For staying with us, let's get back to some of the major stories making the rounds. Tomorrow, President Bola Tinubu has only tomorrow before for him to transmit the cabinet, his cabinet nominations to the National Assembly. That is what the tweaking and the amendment to the Constitution now says, that the governors and the president will now have 60 days before, from the moment they assume office, to transmit the name to the National Assembly. We have a few other issues to touch on. My guest tonight is someone who is very familiar. For 8 years, he was within the precinct of the Aso Villa, but now he's stepped out. He does look like he's looking different. Laulu Akande, the former spokesperson to former Vice President Yemi Osinbajo. You're looking so different, Laulu.
Yeah.
Is he your new rebranding from being out of government?
You can say that now that I'm back as a journalist, you know.
You've come back to the other side.
I've come to the real side now, where I used to be.
Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Give us an understanding of the kind of pressure. This is the very first 59 days on the life of a new government. What do you think might be going on within the villa? Without you even being there physically, you can imagine what is going on there.
You can imagine that, you know, we must understand that since 1999, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the first real politician that has become president. Well, you know, maybe also President Jonathan, you know, but for somebody who actually has to start his whole right from the beginning, not as a vice president, you've had General Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, a former military head of state. You know, you've had you know, President Buhari also. Yeah. You know, so you also had Yaradua and Jonathan. You know, essentially also politicians, but
coming from state politics.
Yeah,
into
but not the caliber. The point is that this is the first time you're having a consummate politician,
an end-to-end politician,
an end-to-end politician, a consummate politician, somebody who has also been in the game for as long as 1992. So he carries quite a lot of people along with him, and I'm not surprised that it's got a little bit of challenge trying to nip this in the bud. But if you look at his pedigree, you know, one of the things that you can take away from him is his ability to be able to compose a very good team. You know, if you look at what he did in Lagos. So I see that there has been, or there is being, a very intense pressure from political forces, from political interests, you know, all across the country, and he's also trying to balance it with putting people that he believes has the real capacity. So you know, it's been interesting, but not quite surprising that it's taking him this long.
Because other presidents that we had a president, the former President Buhari had almost 6 or 7 months before he could transmit names of ministers. But that is not permitted again under our laws. 60 days. Yeah. That is constrained. And there are people who say, what does it take to get a team together? Now, we understand from what we are hearing that there's a lot of removal, addition, subtraction that has been happening over the last few weeks. Some people have gotten on the list. Some people's names have been removed. Some team passed through security checks. Is it that difficult, Laulu, to get this kind of thing done, politically speaking?
Well, I think it's a good thing that now you have a law that gives a limit. I think that is what is most important in these circumstances. Of course, we know what happened in 2015 when former President Buhari came and took that long. Now, people have felt that, look, I mean, there's public interest involved here. You can't have this much time. So that is very helpful, you know, that there's a constraint. But it also goes to the point that, look, it's not always an easy thing to do. Now, it also has a connotation for how decisive you can be, you know, to say that, look, this is what I'm going to do. Now, he has shown that, you know, in the issue of the subsidy, you know, that ability to say, look, let's just call this thing right now.
Even if these 8 are said, don't say it now. Yeah. But the man said, he went off the book. And
that we are going to have to do this. So let me start off dealing with it. So that shows a little bit of somebody that is decisive, whichever way you look at it, up or down. But the issue of the selection of the cabinet is as decisive. You would also wish that it could be as assertive on that. But there are a lot of political interests, you know, that play, you know. And
because he didn't get into power all by himself.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of people who also paid some sacrifices, you know, and who will also be waiting that, look, all of their sacrifices, it has to be. Don't forget that the governors of APC were very instrumental in him getting the ticket of the APC.
The governors of the APC, especially the northern governors, you know, who were able to stand for the right thing when we were almost at the verge tweaking the zoning balance. You remember what happened when the former chairman of the party went to announce a candidate. You know, the governors of the APC, especially those in the north, were able to stand up and say, "Hey, no, it's time to go to the south," which is a very commendable thing that we must also say. So you imagine that people like that will also have tremendous influence in what is going to happen. Now, we know that the president also is interested in putting some very important technocratic capacity on the table to be able to deal with the problem of the country. So I see a kind of balancing act. And like I said, at least now the law says, look, whatever you want to do, take 60 days. So tomorrow,
it's going to be interesting. I know that within the next few days, it's going to be analysis of those who will be in Tinubu's cabinet that probably will pervade the national discourse. But let me take you to yet another interesting area that you will like your insight on, and it's about this social register. At NEC meeting, which you were part of NEC meeting for 8 years. You sat in that meeting, so governors actually play key roles. But at that meeting, they criticized the National Social Register, which the National Social Register office had said, look, this is the most reliable social register that we have in this country. What is your view on what exactly is going on? Is it that some of the governors are not privy to the right information, or the social register itself is lacking in integrity?
Well, I think there are two important issues here. And the first thing is that the National Social Register, as a matter of fact, is not a property of the federal government. You know, if you look at the way that it was developed, it's actually the states, the state governments, and by extension, indeed, the state governors that were most instrumental in developing those registers in their states. So what you have at the national level is the federal government now putting it together from all the states.
As a database.
Yeah, so that's the first point. The second point is that if you look at what has happened between 2015 and now, it's unlikely that you will find a state government that is not using those registers as we speak for their own local programs. As we speak, virtually every state government
so they are consuming
is using the database that they had created, you know, for different programs that are not even those of the federal government. So it is possible indeed that the new set of governors and the ones that are not new, maybe there's some kind of a blind sight that I have not been able to figure out, you know. But there have also been people that have argued that it's possible that the governors really want to have more control of the resources that is going to be coming from the federal government. So it may be an issue of the governors wanting to have more control about where the money goes to, and not necessarily a problem with the register. And I guess, you know, and I don't know this for a fact, but it seems, and the theory has been tabled, that it is probably a situation of calling the dog a bad name just so you hang it.
Because when money is involved right now, because the argument is being that some of the governors and the states have not been, they just see this money being shared. They've never really been part of it because it's the federal government that comes to the state. And maybe the monies go to even their opponents and they want their party members to benefit from it. The question is how this sharing will cut across so that it's not going to one political party in a state controlled by PDP, going to PDP, in a state controlled by ABGA, going to ABGA, state controlled by APC, going to APC. Right. How do you hope or think, because over the last 7 years, the Buhari government has given out handouts. Yeah. Do you think that this will not have political implications or donation?
Yeah, and which is, in my view, based on my own experience, one of the strengths of the National Social Register is that it is composed. The composition of the list is a very fairly and actually very comprehensively objective process, where people will go, the enumerators will go to the communities, and each community determines and defines what it is that they consider to be poverty, and then drops the list from the communities to the local government, to the states where the register is actually drawn, and then it goes back to the federal government. And in terms of the disbursement, what has happened and what people have seen is that the monies go directly from the coffers of the federal government to the bank accounts of the beneficiaries. And so you don't have the opportunity where there can be some kind of third-party
interference.
Yeah. And this is a process, that even the World Bank have come out to explain that, look, we are very sure of the credibility of this thing. We are part of it. As a matter of fact, the African Network for Environmental and Economic Justice, ANEJ, issued a statement, I think, over the weekend, where they said that, look, it's on the basis of this social register, national social register, that Nigeria was able to take back about 500 million of the Abacha loot because the Swiss court had insisted that, look, we are returning back this money, and we want to be sure that it goes to the
straight
Nigerian
to the people. Yeah.
And so the social register was what enabled that to happen.
It's good to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
New look.
Thank you.
New life.
I think it's a good new look.
This was a special advisor to former Vice President Professor Shibajo when he was Vice President of Nigeria. Thank you so much indeed for coming. It's good to see you.
Thank you so
much.
And
welcome back into the fold.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
So that's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow again at 7 p.m. Prospering our lives. God bless Nigeria.